salary negotiation. I think this is something everyone has been through. Tips, tricks, do's and don'ts. Uh, as far as salary negotiation goes, what does the world need to know? What do smart SEOs need to know? That's our catchphrase of the evening.
I feel like others are probably going to be way more qualified to speak on this, so I'll give my 2 quick and very practical tips about how to talk about salary on screening calls, because I wasn't aware of this, but I guess in the past it was abnormal to have salary enter the conversation within the first 5 minutes of screening calls. And what I've experienced over the past few years is that every single screening call asks you your salary, and they, more often than not, and I've stepped in it a couple times with companies by thinking I could negotiate later. Generally speaking, they've been pretty honest about what the top of their actual range is, because recruiters don't want to waste their time because they're so busy. So when you name your base price, one, do not be afraid to give what your ideal salary is, maybe even a bit higher, because I've never had someone immediately be like, no, you're too expensive, and hang up the phone. They'll just tell you the lower salary range, and then you can say okay, I want the conversation to continue. I might be able to do that. That could be possible. But you can also, another tip is, very often they will want you to say your expectations before they give theirs. So again, be open and honest and be like, my base is XYZ. Based on what I know about the role, it's going to be around this mark. It might increase by the time I learn more about the responsibilities, but it will not be lower than this number. You can also just do a little bit of research. I tend to not always trust Glassdoor because I've seen it be really up and inaccurate for salaries and stuff. But you can also be like, hey, based on my research, whether that be other interviews and just anecdotal data that you've collected yourself, a role like this is worth XYZ, your requirement. So they understand that you are ready to negotiate based on actual information, opposed to I want this, or this is my current salary and I hope to make the same, or something like that. But yeah, just being ready to have that conversation very early on, because people are going to talk about it immediately, is what my experience has been.
Aggressive.
So I think I really want to hear what Carolyn has to say on this, because I think that she has a lot to say on this. But from my perspective, some of it is about what level you're interviewing for. So if you're entry level, then definitely have an idea of what your bottom line is. What do you need to live? And if you're interviewing for a job that's going to require you to, take a train every day or pay for parking every day or something like that, factor that into what you need to live and figure out where that bottom is, because too many times I have seen entry-level people take a job, just the highest salary they could find, but that salary may still, not that they could find, but that they felt like they could get, and that salary was still not enough for them to actually meet their living expenses. So make sure you know where your bottom is. And then if you're at a higher level, make sure you know what your worth is. And again, you can kind of back into it by thinking to yourself, okay, what are the things that are most valuable to me about this negotiation? Do I want flexibility to, do I want a flexible schedule? Do I need to be fully remote? Do I have a lot, do I want a lot of vacation? Think about the value of your benefits, whether they're going to pay for your health insurance or not. All of those things are questions that you can ask in that process that will both give you some wiggle room on where that final number ends up, and also help you get to know more about the company, and the company to understand that you're going to be a serious negotiator because you're asking these questions.
Absolutely.
Agreed. So I will say first, a lot of people, especially if they're entry level, think that, oh, I don't have to negotiate, or it's rude to negotiate, or it's especially a social or cultural thing. Some cultures don't approach the person who like is above them in the social structure, and they feel like they can't negotiate. But at least in America, if you're not negotiating even your entry level salary, you're setting yourself up to lose millions of dollars over your lifetime because you're starting out at whatever lower rate. And the majority of companies are trying to get you at the lowest rate that they can get you because they know that every year that you're there, they're going to have to continue to increase upon that. So for you as an employee, always negotiate. It's expected of you to negotiate. The only time I've heard that it isn't is I once consulted with a guy for salary negotiations, and his company had set pay based on the research that they'd done to make sure that there was pay equity across the board. But the salaries he discussed with me were fair and equitable. So they weren't trying to lowball people. Those types of companies don't allow negotiation because they want to make sure that everyone coming in at a certain role, at a certain experience level, is paid regardless of if you're a male or female, if you're white or not white, and that sort of thing. So they want to make sure that all is fair and equitable. So always negotiate. As Emily was saying, do your research in advance. So pull from a bunch of different sources and also ask your friends in similar industries. Everybody's uncomfortable about money, but salary transparency is key to ensuring that people are paid fair and that we're paid well, and that everyone is getting paid what they're worth. So talk to people. One thing you could do is, I've heard of people doing this. I've never done it myself, but you can contact the person who is in that role last if they've left already and ask them about the role, about the company, and ask them if they feel comfortable discussing what the salary was when they left and when they started and how the growth was in that organization. I haven't done that personally, but I know some people have. And even if you don't want to talk about salary with that person, it's a good opportunity to at least say, hey, why did you leave? How is working in this role? How is the manager? That sort of thing. As Jenny was saying, everything is negotiable. So if you come up on a hard stop, like Emily was saying, they're like, this is our pay band and this is the very top, you can work to negotiate more to get to that level that you're wanting to get to. So if you want to get paid 120 grand and the company says our top level for this role is 100 grand, you can say, okay, what's worth 20 grand to me that they could cover? Would it be a home office setup? Would it be, if I have to go into the office, would it be a commuter? Are they paying for my commuting and parking? If I'm a client-facing person, will they pay for a wardrobe for me? Like literally anything is negotiable. You can negotiate childcare, you can negotiate makeup, you can negotiate cars. So figure out what it is that's important to you and make sure that you are including that in your negotiation. And as Emily was saying, work it out in advance as well. So if you're saying, okay, if I need 20 grand of wiggle room, what is an extra 2 weeks of paid vacation worth to me? What is them covering my childcare costs worth to me? So you can make up that middle ground in between. And as Emily was saying, most recruiters will try to get you to name your price in advance. You can always switch it around and say, I know that Raleigh SEO Meetup Company is known for your amazing benefits and the amazing work-life balance. And I would love to know what the salary for this role is. So you can ask them before they get you in a number in case you accidentally lowball yourself. You've done all the research, like Emily said, and then Glassdoor, cuts you down 30 grand or something like that. Usually if I negotiate something and they just say, okay, I say, shit, I just lost a ton of money. Like you want there to be back and forth in a negotiation. If I just say, I want this amount and they say, okay, cool. I'm like, oh man, I just left money on the table. And you can do it with clients too. If you're willing to negotiate for them, especially if you're starting out in freelance. When I first started out, we left Jenny or lost Jenny.
Oh boy.
I remember a lot of people would say, oh, I'm just a small business. I don't have this much money to spend on SEO. So I worked with one woman and I said, okay, we'll set this monthly rate. We'll do it for 3 months. And then if every month you could introduce me to 2 of your friends in this industry who may need SEO help, that's another way that you can sort of negotiate that's not necessarily on the salary side. But those are all tips for a new job, if you're in an existing job and you see, holy crap, I'm making way below what I should be making for this role, try to get your manager, try to get the meeting. Don't spring it on your manager. Get the meeting in advance, collect a list of your wins, and wins can be hard wins and sort of like these soft wins. So they can be things like, I helped grow the ROI on this campaign by 400%, or they can be things like, everyone in this department loves working with me and I am really contributing to the overall, like, here are all the Slack messages where people say, thanks for sticking up for me and thanks for voicing whatever for me. So it can be both sides of things, but overall, don't be afraid to negotiate. I know this was a long tirade, but it's so important to me that that people get paid what they're worth, because anytime you don't negotiate, you're leaving money on the table and it can affect your quality of life for years and years and years to come. So negotiate as early as possible and negotiate for as much as possible in that role, and you can build on it from there. Okay, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
It's a fantastic topic. That's yes. Aggressive nodding.
Sorry.
I like it. Eli, any thoughts on salary negotiation?
Carolyn said it all. I mean, if you don't ask, you won't get. And just to reinforce what Carolyn said, ask. I mean, I know, like, I once got like another $5,000 and I felt the same way of like, shit, I should ask for 10, but like I got 5 because I opened my mouth. So open your mouth. Like, the worst thing will happen is they'll say no.
100%. I think the most important part of the salary negotiation is in fact a negotiation. With action meant to be taken. Cool. So that wraps us up. Let's pop into
I have one more comment I want to make there. Yes, and that is, we talked earlier about how companies are trying to get you for as little as possible, right? Seek out companies that don't do that. Seek out companies that really strive to try and pay their people what they're worth, because that creates a better culture within the company and people are more likely to stick around. You're likely to have less turnover and more consistency in terms of how the company operates, who's there, how the team functions. All of those things are super, super important to a good company and a good culture environment.
Absolutely. And I think that the one theme that you're reminding me of, Jenny, is like, there's like, you can view this as a negative, or there's like the glass half full is like, thank you so much for allowing us to like just filter. Thank you for making me aware of how you operate, and I will act accordingly. Thank you. That's a great sort of mindset to take any sort of job search negotiation with.